What's up, everybody? Time for some more rSpace. Am I the a-hole for calling my wife petty in front of her family for putting her maiden name on her son's birth certificate? I've been married to my wife for 3 years. I have a 16-year-old son from my previous marriage, and his grandparents and I are on good terms. We've set up a joint account to contribute towards his college fund. The problem started when my wife requested that I pull money from my son's college fund to pay for a C-section and a private hospital. I declined her request and refused to even negotiate. She complained about how I didn't seem to care about her or our son's well-being, even though there was nothing to worry about in terms of health. Yes, every medical procedure has its own risks, but the local Frere hospitals we have are decent and offer great care. All family members and friends had their kids there. She disagreed and criticized the poor service local hospitals have and insisted that this was a big deal since it concerned both her and our son's health. I tried assuring her, saying she will be fine, but she argued that I have no idea what it's like and told me if I refused to put money towards the C-section, then I shouldn't be surprised when she put her maiden name on our son's birth certificate instead of my family's name. I refused as I saw no need to waste money on private hospitals when we had free service and care available. She stopped bringing it up, and days later, she had a scheduled C-section at the local hospital, and I wasn't allowed to be at the hospital, and I respected her wish. I only saw my son when she came home, and I was shocked to learn she went ahead and put her maiden name on the birth certificate. I immediately went off on her, but she said I caused this and claimed I was obviously favoring my oldest over my youngest before he was even born. I said she was dead wrong and called her petty and vengeful for doing this purely to punish me solely for the fact that I was unable to afford a private hospital. Her family watched and she told me to step out of the room, but I said we weren't finished talking. She started crying and her mom got involved and told me to step out because I was stressing her daughter out. I had an argument with her too and asked if she approves of any part of her daughter's behavior, and she just shook her head, telling me to calm down and give her some time to rest. She said no, but I bear the blame for disregarding my wife's needs after she made them clear and pointed out that pulling some money for the private hospital wouldn't hurt, but my parents disagreed and are pissed and refusing to even visit, calling my wife unhinged and toxic. First judgment from King Jacko Pax. Not the a-hole. That's money for a college fund and is earmarked as such. Should have been the end of the discussion. Edit to clarify. By end of the discussion, I'm referring exclusively to discussing the use of the college fund for other purposes. OP should still have looked into making other funds available or possibly temporarily ceasing or reducing contributions to the college fund in order to help his wife get a private C-section if that's what she was advised to do. Valuable Dog 6794 chimes in. Should have been the end of the discussion. I disagree. This is an INFO situation. How much is OP putting in the fund a month? Is it interfering with his ability to contribute financially in other areas? Could they have taken out a loan? Could he have pulled together some money and asked his or her parents for the rest to make it up? He straight up said no, end of discussion. That's wrong. Most women don't know they'll have to get a C-section until an issue arises. Perhaps she was fine with public hospital vaginal birth until the doctor told her she'd need a scheduled C-section. Birth injuries and birth trauma can cause lifelong issues. OP straight up dismissed every concern and told her to suck it up. That's not okay. Maybe the hospital is known for screwing up the incision. Maybe she has friends who never felt right after having a C-section there. Who knows? OP doesn't go into it. If you aren't the pregnant woman, it's very easy to point to a high survival rate. Most men don't have female friends telling them about permanent incontinence, pain that never goes away, doctors leaving rags in your body because they were careless, etc. Honestly, I think the only issue she's for sure an a-hole on is not going hyphenated instead of just her name. It sounds like disregarding her fear of birth was the last straw, and they're on their way to a divorce. Next judgment from Nana Banana 2. Wow, I guess I'm the only one here, so bring on down the votes, but you're the a-hole. Your wife is about to give birth to her first child. She is worried that the quality of healthcare that she will receive in this incredibly painful and vulnerable moment of her life is not good enough. Instead of taking her seriously, trying to understand why she is concerned and potentially brainstorming for other ways to get the money to pay for the treatment, you laugh in her face and tell her she should be fine with the free stuff. Sure, easy for you to say as it's not your vagina that will potentially burst open, and then get pissed the kid doesn't get your last name like it's 1950. You're a huge butt, and I hope she divorces you. Another judgment from Kitten Caboodle. ESH. Your wife for obvious reasons. Your kid's college fund is not a family bank account. That said, you yelled at a woman who had a C-section. And she is absolutely right. You do not know what it's like. And judging from most of the comments here, most commenters don't. This isn't something women choose lightly. That's major surgery where they rearrange your insides, set your intestines on the side while they cut through layers of skin, fat, and muscle to remove a baby, and then literally use staples to keep you together. Most C-sections are scheduled somewhat because it is a major surgery. My plan was to have my son vaginally, but because of health issues, they planned an induction, which led to a C-section. If you are so disconnected from your wife that you don't know why she was having a C-section or what the recovery is like, you're not the best partner you could be. She's got 2 weeks before she can even sit up on her own. She's oozing out of orifices and wounds. Her boobs are achy and leaky. Hormones are raging. Her body is in shock. And you're standing there dismissing her concerns and calling her petty. You did this to yourself. Get ready to set aside 2 college funds. Moving on to the next story. Would I be the a-hole for not telling my siblings about their true paternity and taking everything in my dad's will? I, 38, have been in no contact with my dad and 2 younger siblings for many years. My dad always treated me like crap because he was convinced that my mom cheated on him, because she did, a lot, and trapped him into a crappy marriage, and that I was not biologically his. For my 13th birthday, my dad bought me a paternity test, and even though the test results came back that I am indeed his, he accused me, or my mother, of sleeping with the test guy. I have also done an ancestry DNA test and also matched with all of his relatives, so I'm pretty sure that unfortunately, he is my bio dad. I have known for a long time that my younger sister was not my dad. When I did my ancestry DNA test, my sister wanted to get one too. My mom freaked out, admitted her indiscretion, and begged me to convince my sister that it was a waste of money and that she could just have a copy of my results. I did, because I thought I was protecting her and she was going through a rough time at the time. I recently got a notification about an ancestry DNA match. I looked it up, and it looks like my brother's ex-wife got one of the kits for both of my brother's kids. And lo and behold, my brother's kids only seem to share relatives from my mom's side. FYI, my profile uses a screen name, so she would not have recognized who I was. My brother and sister have been really crappy to me for years. Comments about how I owed their dad for him putting a roof over my head as a child, and how dare I accept items from their grandmother's estate, etc. I put up with it for years because they are younger and honestly not that bright. I thought that they'd come around eventually. My dad made sure in a drunken fight with my mother to give me a copy of his will, still have it, so that I knew that he had put a stipulation in there about his estate being divided amongst his biological children. I know that he has not changed his will since because his mental capacity has changed. TMI. Would I be the a-hole if I did not tell my siblings and just let this play out at the will reading? Take everything and kick them out of the family home? I would also be setting up funds for my nephew since my loser brother doesn't pay child support. My husband thinks that this is stooping to their level, as they both rely on his estate currently for survival, so this will ruin them. They have no education or way to support themselves currently. But I kinda wanna stoop. First judgment from Libaloo. Stoop, stoop, stoop. Seriously though, not the a-hole. Your half-sibs sound like entitled pieces of work. ETA. Also, you didn't write the will, so... DOP responds, I think I just have to leave it as is and it will stoop itself. My sister will likely be the one to push the DNA test. She threatened this before, in an effort to increase her share and cut me out. Next judgment from Classy Broad MSP. If you don't follow the will, you will be the a-hole for not following his wishes. He knew what he was doing by specifically adding biological. Faraday adds, not the a-hole considering how they treated you. If this was only about your father and they hadn't treated you any differently, then you would be the a-hole. They only rely on his estate currently for survival, so this will ruin them. They have no education or way to support themselves currently. How is this your fault? What would they do if the roles were reversed? Moving on. Am I the a-hole for saying my brother's girlfriend isn't welcome here because she was pushy about my wife breastfeeding? I'll keep it short and simple. My wife has pernicious anemia. Her body can't absorb vitamin B12. Even if she ate a bunch of food full of B12 or an entire bottle of supplements, it would make no difference. She has regular B12 injections to make sure she gets enough. My wife is pregnant. She's being monitored closely because lack of B12 is not good for the baby or for her. Her due date is in 20 days and her doctors have told her under no circumstances is she to breastfeed. They say the lack of B12 will cause harm to our baby. This situation. When we announced her pregnancy, my brother's girlfriend wouldn't stop asking my wife about breastfeeding. At first she was not bad. She gave my wife 2 books about it, but she would not stop bringing it up when my wife explained she can't breastfeed because of her condition. She invited my wife to a support group for moms who breastfeed, called Triple L or something like that. She went so far as to give my wife's email to other moms she knows so they could email my wife about why she should breastfeed and give my wife printouts from the internet about a woman who had B12 deficiency and breastfed. That woman was a vegan. She didn't have my wife's medical condition. My sister-in-law also apparently solicited for milk donations on our behalf, even though we never asked for this. We wouldn't take milk from random strangers. There's no regulations or checks and balances where we live, so we have no idea what was in the milk. We asked her to stop it, but she wouldn't. The last straw was her having these donors emailing my wife after we asked my sister to stop. I understand she is passionate about it, and it worked for her with my nephew, but she isn't a doctor and neither are the people emailing my wife. Since she wouldn't stop when we asked her, I told her she is no longer welcome in our home. My wife made a new email address and we are going to listen to actual doctors. My brother's girlfriend actually said the doctors don't know what they are talking about, which is so out there I can't even. My brother reamed me out for speaking to his girlfriend harshly, and he says I owe her an apology. For the record, he backs up what she says and thinks my wife needs to listen to her. His girlfriend is mad too and thinks our baby is unfortunate because of all this. I guess she was trying to help, but she went way over the top in my humble opinion. First judgment from Mr. Mini Doxy. Not the a-hole. A baby with severe B12 deficiency can have permanent brain damage. I would trust the doctors who understand your wife's condition more than a bunch of random internet articles. The OP responds, what you said is exactly what the doctor said. They gave me examples of case studies for us to read to make sure we understood, and they are meticulous about my wife's blood work to ensure all is well. The last thing we want is a problem like you described. Next judgment from Mogetti. Not the a-hole. She wasn't trying to help, she was trying to control your wife. I wouldn't speak to her again until she apologized for violating your privacy and emotionally abusing your wife. Colton Yeti has the last judgment. Not the a-hole. My wife breastfed and joined a bunch of groups. Even she said it gets cult-like with the mothers in these groups. You guys have to do what's best for you and your baby. As long as the baby is healthy, breast or formula, you guys do you. The OP replies, I noticed the changes when my sister-in-law had my nephew. She breastfed him until the age he was old enough for school, but he was homeschooled, so it worked out for them. She learned lots of things from these other moms that my wife and me disagree with, actually.